Alright, today we're going to go over the Prismacolor Techniques worksheet. In this video, we're going to review some of the color theory we discussed in class, and we will also learn a few different colored pencil techniques. So let's get started. First, write your name and class period on the top of the paper. I know that this is the hardest part of the assignment for some people. If you're one of those people, get your life together, man. The next step is to read the directions. So even if the assignment seems straightforward, it's always just good practice to read them. So this says to create a graded scale in each box provided using at least 2 colors. Okay, so pretty straightforward. Above each exercise is the technique and its definition, and below is the color scheme, and I need to transform the rectangle into a graded value scale and the circle into a sphere. For the first exercise, we have to layer in burnish. Layering simply means that I'm building up thin layers of pigment, and as you can see, I'm not applying a lot of pressure here. My color scheme for this exercise is warm, and I need to use complements to create value. So I'm starting with orange and poppy red, which is a warm red and leans more toward orange on the spectrum. So I'm building up light layers of those colors and gradually layering in blue indigo to create my dark value. Notice that I'm not adding blue indigo to my entire section because I want to create a gradient, so I'm only layering in blue indigo where I want it to look the darkest. While there is no correct or incorrect number of layers you'll need, you will need to continue building them until you've reached the correct value. Next, we need to burnish. Burnishing is simply pressing hard enough to remove the tooth from the paper, leaving a smooth, waxy surface. Burnishing is commonly done with white or with a colorless blender like I'm using here, but it can be done with any color. To burnish, just apply firm pressure to your stroke, and that's it. Make sure that you don't do this until you have all of your layers down. Now I'm going to apply this technique to the exercise. I'm carefully layering my colors and staying inside of the lines. Since it needs to be a graded scale, that means I should have my darkest values on the right and my lightest values on the left, and all of the values between them should transition seamlessly. Then, once I'm happy with all of my values, I'll burnish. Next, I'll apply the same technique to my sphere. I need to add all of the parts of the shadow shown here, but I need to do it in the same color scheme as the scale. Nothing has changed in the technique here. The only thing different between the sphere and the scale is that I need to pay attention to the contours of the sphere. That means that the shadows need to curve around the surface. The next exercise is stippling. So stippling is when we use small dots of color to create value. The value is determined by how close or far apart your dots are. Here I'm going to use blue and black to meet the requirements of the exercise. I'm using blue indigo and true blue to give me a slight range in color value, but I really want to let the proximity of the dots create my value here. So the darker areas will have more dots closer together, and lighter areas will have fewer dots spread further apart. A little tip, don't slam the pencils into the table. Applying gentle pressure will do the trick. The medium in these pencils is really soft, so you'll just destroy them if you're too aggressive. Yes, it can be tedious and it will take time, but be patient. This technique is pretty straightforward. Everyone knows how to scribble, right? It's just making random lines overlapping and in any direction. However, we will be doing it in a controlled way in order to create value. This will sort of be a combination of the first two techniques in that we'll be using both the proximity of the lines and the pressure to make different values. color scheme for this one is analogous, which means that I need to use colors next to each other on the color wheel to create value, and it's instructing me to start at green. To create value using analogous colors, the rule is simple. Take the shortest path to yellow. Since yellow has the lightest value, the colors on the wheel will naturally get lighter in value as they travel towards it on the wheel. So in this example, I'm starting with yellow, then going to a yellow-green, and then green. For the final exercise, we will crosshatch. Crosshatching is a technique you probably recognize from comic books. It's made by overlapping straight lines in various directions to create value. Just like the last two techniques, the value will be determined by proximity. The more lines you have, the closer together they are, the darker the value will appear. Here, we are instructed to use a monochromatic color scheme, meaning we can only use one color with its tints and shades. I'm going to use red as my local color and pink, which is a tint of red, for my highlights.